This is David with Corel Training.
This is Cassie Green from Apparelist.
This is Gordon and Firemark from the Entertainment Law Update.
And you're listening to
Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted by
Terry Combs RG, Regular Guy,
and Aaron Montgomery.
The place to be for industry news.
the best dad jokes on earth, along with relevant topics to apparel decorators.
Prepare for the ride.
All right, welcome into the show. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025. I'm Terry Combs, and you can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Eric Campbell, very obviously not Aaron Montgomery, who is off at the DAX shows today. And today, very apropos, we're going to delve into the world of how embroidery gets done. I know I'm on screen and embroidery comes up. It's kind of a curse, right, guys? But we're going to talk about new movements in equipment and education, how we handle employees, just kind of taking the temperature of what's going on in embroidery today. And on that note, we're going to be joined by a special guest, Ramona McKee of quicktostitch.com, who is an awesome digitizer and an embroidery educator in her own right with her own show. So I'm pretty excited to have her chime in on this stuff.
All right, quick to stitch the number two.
You're right, actually. We get to do the number two joke like repeatedly today.
Right. Well, make sure you stay till the very end of the show for the secret sauce. As Eric said, Aaron isn't with us today, but he recorded a special sauce just for the regulators, the Gratitude Superpower Formula.
The secret formula. I like the idea for this sauce. And honestly, I'm glad to see Aaron. Aaron really came in clutch this week. So I just want to say ahead of time, thank you, Aaron, for getting us really well set up for the show. Anything we do completely wrong
before he left. So
he had it there. Everything that's wrong with the show is definitely our fault.
He is concerned, though, that if we finish exactly on time, that it's his fault that we always go over. So no pressure, Eric, but
I don't know whether that's pressure for me to finish on time or to go long to make him feel better, but one of the other is likely to happen. Something will probably embarrass one of us at least.
All I know is the secret sauce is exactly 3.5 minutes. So if we hit it about 10:56 Eastern, we're in, baby.
We will certainly give it a try. However, we do have something else coming up that you guys always love, and I certainly love. We're going to bring on Cassie Green from the Apparelist, which I love to have her on, and we got some great news. So shall we do the news?
Let's do the news. Let's see Cassie.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy to join I'm in Denver this very snowy Friday morning. We got like 4 inches last night, so that's really fun. But here to talk about headlines today. So first headline that I have, Hanesbrands CEO plans to depart company. So Hanesbrands recently announced that Stephen Bratsby's will depart as its chief executive officer of the company at the end of 2025 or upon the appointment of his successor. He will stay on in an advisory role once a new CEO is named. The company also announced on the same day its fourth quarter and full year 2024 results, which it reports were better than expected. According to news reports shared by both Hanesbrands and other press outlets, these moves reflect Hanesbrands' progress in recent years to, quote, reignite its innerwear business, increase market share, attract younger consumers, and strengthen its operating models. And of course, stay tuned to apparelist.com because when a new CEO is announced, we'll be sure to share that headline. Second headline I have to share with everybody this morning, Stahls announces its 2025 Stahl Family Scholarship. So Stahls announces the Stahl Family Scholarship for 2025, which marks 5 years of empowering entrepreneurs and schools with heat printing technology. The company is now accepting applications for Q1. Since its launch in 2020, the scholarship has awarded over $100,000 worth of equipment to 37 winners. Now this year, Stahls continues this tradition by awarding 8 Dream Shop packages throughout the year. Each quarter, 2 winners, 1 small business and 1 school, will receive a comprehensive heat printing package valued at over $6,000. So if you are interested in applying for that scholarship, you can click on the news headline at apparelist.com to find out some more information. Final headline I have for everybody today. This is a Printing United Alliance update. Washington State moves to ban most printing inks again. Now, bear with me, everybody. This is kind of a complicated headline, but it has really important information that everybody needs to pay attention to. So, in a shift from its previous position, the Washington Department of Ecology, or the DOE, released a draft Safer Products Report recommending regulation to reduce the amount of inadvertent polychlorinated biphenyls, or IPCBs, found in pigments used in printing inks. So absolutely does apply to our industry. So to really understand the significance of what this could mean, we've got to kind of backpedal and look at the history of what this has been affecting. So in 2022, the Alliance mounted an opposition campaign to stop the regulation of inks that contain trace amounts of IPCBs. So when the DOE concluded it could not impose stricter limits than the EPA's current limits, legislation was introduced in 2023 to ban chlorinated pigments in inks. Again, this effort was also halted by an opposition campaign led by the Alliance and its members. However, legislation was passed that required the DOE to petition the EPA to revise the existing IPCB limits. And so, long story short, we've gone back and forth, lots of discussion. The EPA denied the state's petition in April 2024, and now there is yet another ban being proposed. So keep an eye on this. I know that was really complex and a lot of information. I definitely encourage everybody to read the article shared by Gary Jones, who was our Vice President of Environmental Health and Safety Affairs, to really understand how this impacts our industry. And Erich and Terry, that's everything I've got. Back to you guys.
Always interesting news.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of crazy news, but definitely, guys, go check out in the comments. I gave all of those links. So they are clickable and ready to go. And you can get all of that information, especially the stuff about the ban on inks. That is just crazy. But yeah, lots of information, lots of detailed information. Go check that out at Apparelist.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Erich, I actually have a dad joke for today.
Do you really? Let me grab a couple of comments. We have a couple of people who are talking in the comments first. Let's grab some regulators. I'm going to make you guys wait just a minute more because this is actually a good dad joke. This is one that you're going to like. At least I think we're going to get some good groans out of this. But let's say hi to a couple of regulators first. We've got Doug coming in from Los Angeles, who's also saying, hi, Erich. Glad you're feeling better. I wish I was. I will try and keep it together today. If I cough a little bit, you'll have to forgive me, Doug, but everybody's going to be doing their best. And Ramona is waiting in the wings. So yeah, we will be here real soon. Got Cindy King jumping in saying good morning all as well. And like I said, we have lots of people joining in from all over the place. We have all those links to the Apparelist are there. So check those out in the comments. Collegiate Press coming in from Boston. Tough loss last night. I will assume this is sports related, and Terry will have to fill me in later.
It is USA Canada hockey.
Oh, rough.
My understanding is the bet between Trudeau and Trump was if the USA won, Canada would in fact become the 51st state. So,
Terry, come on now. All right, Brendan coming in from Wilcom saying, howdy all. And so we got lots of folks that were watching in and love to see everybody who's joining in and talking to each other. So thank you guys for being here. By all means, share this with your friends in the industry, especially all your embroidery friends who want to jump in and talk about the state of how things are going. But with that, are you ready for this dad joke?
I'm ready.
See if we can live up to the hype, my man.
I know.
I hyped you up too much. All right, let's go.
Erich, just before I die, I plan to eat a whole bag of unpopped popcorn.
Really?
Yeah. I think that should make the cremation a little more interesting.
Dude.
Kim's listening out there somewhere. Kim, was a funeral director for many years before she was a garment decorator.
I will say, but living with an ER doc, some dark humor is normal in my household, so I giggle a little bit on that one, but I don't know if everybody's going to join you on that one or not.
Anyhow, All right. Before we dive in, we want to thank everybody for checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. We still need your voices. We would love to have regulators participate in our show intros. We try to change it up all the time. Go to decorators.ink./intro, read a few sentences, and be a part of every show. Don't be left out. We are always looking for new guests. So if you or anyone you know would like to join us, go to calendly.com/2, the number 2, regular guys to book a future episode, or email us at info@tworegularguys.com with your show ideas. If you are listening to the podcast version of the show, we would appreciate you sharing the Two Regular Guys podcast with all of your industry friends so they can become regulators too. And we would appreciate you giving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast, YouTube Podcast, wherever you do your podcast listening. We are there and in our 13th year. So if you're watching us live, please join in with your comments and your questions.
And apparently I'm alone thinking people weren't going to go with you. Everybody likes it. Good one, Terry from Collegiate Press. We also have Cassie coming in saying, wow, great dad jokes. So greatest dad jokes in the industry, obviously. Brendan's laughing as well, despite trying to leave a minute ago from being called out. But hey, he's coming in from the Chile, UK for the Printwear and Promotion show. So he's also out there seeing and being the future of embroidery. So definitely lots of folks coming in. But yeah, apparently the vote is the dad joke was good. I thought it was
right.
Good. So yeah, you're on fire.
I was kind of proud of it.
I think it was worthwhile. It was worthwhile. All right. So with that, let's actually get to the show part of the show. Let's bring in our special guest. So Ramona, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Awesome to have you in.
While I was in the green room, Bella decided to join us too. So she'll be here.
So we will have some pets. That is fine. We are no strangers to some animals on screen, so we certainly have that once in a while. But for those who don't know you, by the way, a lot of people in the audience already know who you are. They're calling you out already. But why don't you let know a little bit about how you came to be in the business of embroidery?
So I've actually been digitizing for about 14 years. I started out as an apprentice for a different software's educator who also had online stock designs. About 4 years into that, I decided to go solo by answering the call. Somebody on Facebook said, I need somebody to digitize this. And I said, I can do it. So, and it's just been me ever since. So here we are.
I can do it and never look back, right?
That's about it. Yes, it is.
That's awesome.
Well, Erich and myself, as well as you, were at the Impressions Expo in January out on Long Beach. So did you see anything in the way of equipment or supplies that really caught your eye? Anything new and exciting?
I did. I mean, I love my Madeira and my Azaccord threads, but there's a relatively new thread vendor out there, Candle Threads. From what I've been able to gather, they've actually been in the industry for 40 years, but they're only new into the US market. Beautiful colors, beautiful shine, and very strong thread. They were giving out samples of the cones of thread. And if you've ever worked with like a rayon thread, it just snaps easy. And some of the older brands will also snap. This one, you really have to work to break this thread, which can be very good for a new user who does not know what to do with thread breaks.
No, this is true. I mean, tougher threads are always good. I know certainly I saw lots of stuff out there as far as getting to teach with Joe Kramer. I got to see the stuff from Amon that was out there, and Bonnie Nielsen was out there teaching. So she did a lot of stuff with really thin thread, the Serafil. So thread was certainly on display there. I got to actually hang out with the folks at the Candle booth as well and see their selections and their thread. They're great matching too. They've done some really good work with helping people with thread matches across their brands. That was really cool too. But yeah,
Since I work in a booth, I have to live vicariously through others who go attend the trade show to tell me what was there every day that I walked in and out. I never actually got to see anything. So,
Well, I will say this, since we have you on here, and I know we're talking about embroidery, but I want to talk about everything else too. What was your big, in your booth, what was the big draw that everybody was talking about? Terry?
oh, I'm sorry, you're talking to
Yeah, you're talking to you. What was the thing that you were getting asked the most about?
Well, probably the biggest thing that we had in the booth was the new Epson DTG, or I'm sorry, DTF printer. Epson has come out with their own DTF printers, but it's come up on the show here a couple of times recently. I don't think there was quite the buzz about it that it should have been, because the information was embargoed until the first day of the show, so we couldn't announce, hey, come to our booth and see this brand new Epson product. And so it was a happenstance that people would see it in the booth and go, oh, wait, Epson has a DTF printer? So we're going to take a little different approach at the Atlantic City show.
Yeah, I would bet. Though let's bring up a couple comments. Brandon actually came through with the dad joke about the thread now. Candle threads are lighting up the industry. That was for Terry, apparently.
Very nice.
And Doug says, is candle thread rayon? No, poly. It was a polyester thread that they were really showing primarily. Just to make that clear, not that there aren't other options that are out there, but poly is really what they're bringing out at the show. Though what I'm going to say is, since you were talking about, the DTF and printing, what I saw was a lot of multimedia and then a lot of assistive tech and automation. We were seeing a lot of production level tech. And I was going to ask Ramona too, how do you feel that fits into production as far as the kind of customers you serve as a digitizer? We saw these projectors. We saw people with the barcode scanning was big again this year, where they're pulling up files. And then, like I said, the projectors for hooping and alignment and multimedia, including prints. If you don't mind me asking, how do you feel that that's going on with your customers? Are they looking for production stuff? And kind of who is your ideal digitizing client? What kind of clients are you serving that might be looking for new technologies?
I like to think that I'm the start of somebody's embroidery path. I like to work with the new embroidery machine users, the new embroidery businesses. I like to be there to answer questions. Everybody's got to start someplace, and I have no problem. I love sharing what I have experienced, what I know. And I started, like I said, 14 years ago. I had a little Walmart 4x4 hoop brother machine, and now I have 2 commercial machines. And when you talk about the changes in the technology of these new machines, when they came out with the auto tensioning,
that was huge.
I bought 2 of them. Okay, so I have them sitting in my other room, and I can still adjust tension. I've been doing it for years. But it's one less thing. But for the new user, for the new machine operator, the first thing they do when they think they have trouble is to start twisting on those knobs. Right? It just throws the tension off completely, and then you have to fight to get it back in place. This eliminates that. There are no knobs. No knobs. So you have to troubleshoot and figure out what is actually going on. It's not the tension, so it's got to be something else. And one of the things I do, again, for my new users is, when it is something else, why is my thread shredding, or why am I breaking threads, or why am I getting bird's nest? That's one of the things that I do, is I help people understand what's going on with their machine in their process.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing I found is, when I was talking to people, and even myself, sometimes I think, smaller shops, third bedroom shops, boutique decorators aren't going to care as much about this. But then from your perspective, it's more like, hey, no, these are people who are coming in new. I was thinking about it as, hey, this is for the bigger commercial shop. we have a lot of churn. We can't get skilled employees. We don't have time for training, or training's not really common. Standard operating procedures, it's hard to get that training in for operators who have to know how to twiddle those knobs. And so we're removing that. And hooping too. It's like, oh, of course, how much easier is hooping with a magnetic hoop, with a jig, and now with projecting the design directly on the garment? We're removing a lot of those kind of skills that operators had to build up. But from what you're saying, also, hey, new people, why even have them struggle with that part of embroidery? They come in and the machine is tensioning and working and everything's set.
Right. It's one less thing. And you're right about all the other innovations that are happening. That laser projection, that image projection on the garment, that's amazing.
Yeah.
People have trouble all the time. Well, am I positioning this correctly? Well, here you are. This is going to show you where your position is. Old school, I used to tell people to print their design, cut it out, and pin it to the garment, and then hang the garment up and see if you liked it.
It's true. Yeah, we used to I know we were always taught, grab the 2 shoulder seam corner points, hold it up, make sure your hoop was even after you hooped it. We used to build manual jigs, and now it's like we have controlled jigs. We got the hoop masters. We have the magnetic hoops set up, so it's not also you're pressing in with force, and you can twist the hoop as you're putting something in. It really seems like we're removing some of that difficulty, and more so. Now, I'll say I was at fault for thinking, like I said, smaller shops, single head shops I'm like, hey, you can just do this manually. Why are you investing in extra technology? But from what you're saying, I totally can get where it's like, instead of having this cloud of these different variables that are going on, why not remove a couple of those?
Exactly.
It's funny you guys say that too, because I come from the screen printing production floor, but my rule was nobody turns knobs. No, turn no knobs. Come get me.
I would love for every new machine out there with the knobs that says, "Do not touch me until you call tech services."
Right. Let's spend the next 45 minutes to an hour getting this back into register after you've turned a knob. So,
but don't you think, Terry, for those of us who are kind of like veterans, it's easy for us to kind of like romanticize. I'm like, I can pull on that thread, and from how much it's cutting into my finger, I know what the tension is, and I know exactly. I'm doing drop tests on the bobbin, and I know by about how fast it's falling exactly how that should be. I mean, it's easy for us to romanticize that stuff, right?
Well, in the screen printing, the biggie was also not checking your screens for tension, because there's a meter you put on there to check the tension. And I'll have production floor people say, well, I can tell by feeling them what the tension is. Oh, can you? Do you have magic fingers? Oh, this feels like 25 newtons.
Let me tell you, that is really that is still embroidery wisdom that we give out there. I've seen that listed where it's like, once you get a hold of it, you'll know, you'll feel it. We say that all the time, but admittedly, I've been somebody who always says, hey, get gauges, get that done. But removing some of that, I mean, I can see how that'd be useful. That, and Terry, you'll love, because you're in the world of print. The other thing we're seeing is, and this was in the Rock booth with the ZSK machines, they were projecting onto existing prints to align multimedia designs.
Oh.
So we could project the embroidered design onto the existing print and zero it exactly where it was supposed to be in the hoop, so we could do multi-layer embroidery and multimedia. And that's interesting creatively, but I think probably the production side of that is really where this is at.
Well, yeah, and it makes it so much easier when you have employees, because all of us, we can eyeball it and be perfectly fine, but that's a skill attained over years of being in production, and anything that we can do to make that easier is a good thing. But, speaking of learning to do things, Ramona, we're all about education here, as you know, at Two Regular Guys. So what was your experience with the embroidery education out at the Impressions Expo? What do you think the attendees felt about what was being offered?
Erich will be the first one to tell you, I'm all about the education, even repeat education, primarily because I have a tendency to get excited in the classroom, in the event, and then walk out and everything's gone. So I have no problem repeating things. One of the things that I noticed, and I took four embroidery classes, or was it five? Anyways, one of the things that I noticed is that there were groups of people, during our breaks. There were groups of people that were together, and the thing that I heard was they were just so excited to take this information and go home with it,
Yeah.
so that they could put it to work. Um, Justin Armenta did a class on large embroidery designs, like for jacket back, and how to build those designs. For me, it was a confirmation that I was, on the right track. But for other people, they're trying to build this design one color at a time. So they've got a blob of color down real low and then one real high, and then they don't understand why they have registration issues. Well, in Justin's class, he said break it up into sections and build in sections. And they were so excited to take that information home and build their jacket back one section at a time, even if it means repeating the same color a dozen times.
Yeah.
You want to build in sections. And then, of course, the embroidery toolkit. This is the second year that I went to that. It was amazing. It was amazing. And the people in that class, again, they were excited. They were sharing information. They were digging in deeper. It's sorry, I get excited and
That's all good.
stutter. The classes were amazing, and everybody has something that they take away from it. I have not ever had a class or been part of a class that somebody, got up and walked out because they just couldn't use that information.
Yeah.
Also,
When I first started, I went to every seminar there was, and I figured that if I could learn one thing from that instructor in that hour and 20 minutes, it was worth going to that class. But, when you talk about learning new things, I've told this story before on here. Well, shocker, huh, Erich? I'm going to read the story. We've determined I only have 8 stories. I just changed them around a little bit. So
I think it might be more like 12, but I'll give you 4 more.
Education.
Well, but I had somebody come in into my office one time. This was probably 20 years ago. And she sat down and she said, I've been doing this for 3 years, so I know everything there is to know about screen printing. And I responded, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I feel like I learn something new every day. And she started to cry. I don't know if it was because she didn't know everything or she was about to follow up with and I want to raise. All I know is she turned to cry and got up and walked out of my office. But you have to be that way. If you think you know it all, it's time to move on.
No.
Right.
Well, I'll say, having taught on the toolkit, what I love about the toolkit, since it's multiple people teaching, it was Bonnie and me and Justin and Joe. What I love is I then sit down in the classes and I listen to everybody else teaching, and I'm like, that's me getting to take a class. When I was first starting this, I never took any classes, so it's like I get to kind of take classes with the people I teach with. And honestly, we all have very similar things we think. I teach jacket backs the same way Justin does. Like you could have taken that from either of our slide decks, and it would have been identical, probably, but. We forget, I think, that sometimes those basic skills are either there's people new coming into the industry all the time, number one, and number two, that somebody may have just not encountered that experience that you have. And I think that all of us, kind of forget that who have been here a while. But the thing that I found encouraging was what Ramona said earlier. I saw groups getting together and sharing very naturally. And it wasn't like I've been to shows early on where there was still a lot of caginess and being worried about competition. And I saw none of it this time, literally none. There was everybody was excited to share. And then I saw lots of, though there might also be the makeup of the people. I talked to several very young, new embroiderers and operators who had a department dropped on them. An existing embroiderer left, retired, passed away, sold the company, and they are suddenly just immersed in embroidery with no safety net. And they were very happy when they realized, there's people out here who are going to kind of marshal us through the worst of this. And I think that was really cool to see. But like Ramona said, I saw all these groups. I've got a couple comments I think are worth bringing up, because we talked about the automation here, and Brendan actually has a good question on here. And I think there is something to this. He says, with the increase in automation, is there a risk that when something goes wrong, the skills won't be there to figure out and fix it? I will very briefly add my 2 cents, and then I would love to hear you guys comment on this, because this doesn't have to be just embroidery. I think, honestly, if we teach the fundamentals of how the system is working, it should be fine. I think this is still an overall positive. I do think we should still we have to teach the physicality of what we do, no matter what that medium is. You got to teach how the medium works. Otherwise, this doesn't work out in the end. You don't really understand why you're pushing the buttons, even if it's a button doing the work instead of, us grinding on knobs. I mean, we still need to know that. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Ramona.
I think I think there might be a slight risk to something going, especially with the single machine operator working in their third bedroom. Their resource is YouTube and online groups. And we all know that a lot of that information that comes across when you have a problem and you say, how can I fix this? You're going to get a dozen different answers. And which one's the right answer?
Right.
Okay. So here you are in your third bedroom. You've got a machine, beautifully automated machine, but it's not working. And you have to figure out why. That's the part that I think we need to keep teaching how to, and you're right, Eric, how does the machine operate? Yes, there's a sensor and it comes down and the tensions. And so yes, people need to understand how their machine works so that they can understand what happens when the machine doesn't work. So even with the automation, we still need to educate ourselves on our equipment.
Yeah.
100%. Well, and I'm really big on production floor training, and my whole 5215 process, where every week we spend 15 minutes on Monday talking about one part of what we do. I think that alleviates that issue, so that from the screen printing standpoint, we'll spend 15 minutes talking about squeegees and why there are different densities of squeegees and why this and why that. We'll talk about plastisol, and we'll talk about every week. And so I've always felt that my employees were very, very knowledgeable about the entire process, so they could really troubleshoot. People in my screen printing classes, I'll have people come in and say, well, I already bought an automatic press. And I always encourage people to learn to print on a manual press, because a manual press is a craft, and you will see and feel changes in the angle of the squeegee and the pressure and the tension of the screens and all those types of things. So then when you go to the automatic press, yes, it's much easier. Yes, it's push the button, but you also understand what's happening when something does go wrong. So anyway, it's all about keeping our employees trained, and I couldn't agree more about the YouTube thing, is because if you don't know, what the good advice is. And gosh, there's some horrible information out there. You would think with YouTube that, like, my classes would be start to peter out, that people would say, well, no, I already learned on YouTube. But the stuff they're learning, like every class I have right now, someone will raise their hand when I'm doing a multicolored job saying, wait, don't you need to flash between the colors? Well, no. On YouTube they said, and I'm thinking, okay, that was something that from 40 years ago, and people just keep repeating it on the internet. So I have to do more education now than I ever did before YouTube existed. So
Well,
I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
Oh no, but I mean, it's also all this wonderful sharing. I mean, Cassie says, I agree with you guys. The industry has really embraced sharing its knowledge recently. It's very cool to see. The person to person, peer to peer sharing doesn't happen the same way. I love my YouTube people who show up every week and chat with each other, but there is something very immediate and different about being in a class, in a trade show, investing in your time and your of yourself and talking to each other. There is something that's different about that. That's fair to say. Even though I love online education, there is something different about that. I think it's fair to say.
I like the person to person interaction and networking.
Mhm.
Because you may have a question in the back of your mind that you're formulating, but the guy 2 rows back's already spotted it out, and you're going, "Oh, great!"
Yeah.
You don't get that on YouTube so much.
Right.
For real. It really is something great. Though I do have to bring up, we have a couple of other great comments. Doug was saying he doesn't touch his tensions as much, though he doesn't know how to do them. He runs industrial sewing as well. But I do love this comment. He said, I call touching that stuff tinkeritis. I just like the word tinkeritis. I'm sorry, Doug. I had to bring that in.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
I've definitely seen people when we don't understand our fundamentals. It is where people are like, I don't know why something in the hoop is wrong, and they just start. They're tweaking everything. They're throwing stabilizers under everything. They're changing their hoops out. They're changing everything in the world all at once without a knowledge of what those variables are doing. That's tinkeritis to me. I'll agree with that to a little bit. And then also, Brendan has a good comment. Erich and Ramona are right. Understanding the fundamentals is important, but embracing automation for efficiency gains. I say yeah, for sure. I think that's that, and honestly, that's what you're saying too, Terry. It's like learn to print manual, but what that means is then when you go to the automatic and you are making those numbers happen, you know why things are happening, and you also probably, like I said, like Ramona actually said, it helps you diagnose other problems too.
Exactly right.
So I have to move to another question here. We might not get to all of them. I was a little avaricious. I thought we could get through a whole lot of questions with Ramona, but we'll see. But as a digitizer for hire, and I have obviously as a digitizer myself, I have a lot I wanted to ask you about this. Do you find more people wanting to get involved in digitizing lately or design work, or are the decorators you're working with recently just looking to get files and get stitching?
I again, like I said, I work with a lot of new users.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new users over the years, though, and I do encourage people, if you want to learn to digitize, I can help you with some of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, online teach digitizing, but I can help people understand push and pull and why you use underlays and those types of basics. Over the years, I've had a couple of clients that have merged and now do all of their digitizing in-house. And I think that's wonderful. That's fantastic. But for the most part, the majority of my clients, here's my graphic, make it a hat file, and then they come back the next day, make it a jacket back file. And they want the file, they want to be assured that it's going to run correctly, and maybe some minor tweaks as needed for their equipment, but for the most part they just want their file, and that's fine because that's what I'm there for. That's where my creative, I love doing the digitizing, so for me that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I see both, but I'm going to go ahead and haul out my tired saying. Here's what I do. I have maybe 12 sayings. I might not have 12 stories. I've got 12 sayings, and one of mine is not paying for digitizing is the worst reason ever to bring digitizing in-house. It's the absolute worst idea to learn digitizing to not pay for it because it just doesn't cost enough compared to the immense amount of work and skill you're going to have to build up to do it. And I find that despite saying that, I have a fairly even mix. I teach digitizing, so of course I'm going to have a lot of people who come to me to learn digitizing. However, it's surprising how many times at the end of a class that's all about digitizing and how to do it, someone comes up to me and says, "Can you just do it for me? Can you just be my digitizer? I don't want to go this deep into this thing." And I had to learn myself as someone who was an in-house operator and then in-house digitizer that not everybody really feels the need to have that control. And then I'll go ahead and throw this to an embroiderer many of us know and love, Jane Swansea, who's out of Houston, who I always talked to her about stuff, and I'd always see the work that she was doing, and she always was like, I don't have time for that. She'd had a company for like 30 plus years doing great work and fulfilling major orders for events, and never touched it until she kind of started to slowly retire. Then she started digitizing because she felt like it. So you can have a completely successful business without it. And that's from a digitizer. So I'm sorry to say that, but also that's why we want to do this outhouse too, you know?
And I really believe that you need to have a passion for digitizing. Just like anything you want to do, you need to have a passion for that. My passion is not production embroidery. I'm not about, getting a really great design and then stitching it 500 times. I want to create that really great design. That's where my artistic passion is creating those designs. And I've spent the time learning how to do that and understanding how to do that. And yeah, it's a deep learning curve. So I'm with you. You don't, you, the client, do not need to spend 8 hours a day creating designs just so you can stitch them the next day, stitch 500 of them, send it over. I'll digitize it for you. I'll test stitch it. I'm going to encourage you to test stitch. And then you can run it 500 times.
I'll say this much. The thing that I've been kind of happy to see is the way we talked about more people sharing. I've seen more people wanting to learn the basics of digitizing so that they can then discuss it more readily. And I think that's the really good thing. They've been learning to communicate with the digitizer better and doing some editing, some understanding of it, and some tweaking when they have to. And actually, Justin just brought this up. Justin, who got to teach with it, I got to teach with for the Technique Toolkit, and who had such great classes. Maybe not fully digitizing, but I think embroiderers need some level of software and to understand the basics, and at least do basic lettering in house. Every time I teach, I always say that don't send out names. For crying out loud, don't send out names. You need to know enough. Plus, here's the other thing. Learning about lettering. Lettering is generally done with satin stitches. You're going to learn pull compensation, push compensation, density, and underlay. These are very basic things. And if you understand what those do to your embroidery, you will know what's going wrong in your embroidery most of the time, even if you haven't digitized it. So learning how to do lettering well will be incredible for you communicating to your digitizer when things do go wrong. So I'll have to agree with Justin on that. But yeah, I think that I'm seeing more people who want to know enough. And that's good too. Because it used to be either I want to do everything because I'm a designer and I want to be involved in all the creative parts of it, or I don't ever want to touch it, monkey jump on the box and give me the the file I paid for. There's either those two people. Now I'm seeing, like Justin is saying, people who want to know enough to communicate and get things done.
To put that arch on the back of the hat, or to, just put, Joseph over on the left chest because they just got the design digitized for the right, the other way around. Right chest.
Yeah, sure. Oh, hey, and everybody does all these things, but it's like those little things I think you need to know. But and Doug says, I'm doing more myself, but still send stuff out, by the way, totally fine. Any mix of outsourcing and in-housing is fine if it works for you. People get weird about that. They think like I'm not a real embroiderer if I don't either do it in-house, or maybe I'm not a real business person if I don't send it all out because I'm wasting time. It varies for everybody. So I think that's a good thing to say. But yeah, I think that honestly, I'm kind of with you on this. As a digitizer, if somebody's not the kind of person who wants to push around points, I'm happy to do it for them. But at the same time, I think that it behooves us to kind of learn more about it. Though I am seeing more kind of creative producers wanting to be directly involved. But it is more in that boutique space. It's that small operation, self-designer space that I'm seeing more people who are diving into digitizing to get that creative Jones as part of it.
Well, you mentioned, Ramona, that you deal with a lot of new companies. So a lot of our listeners, no matter if they're embroiderers or screen printers or...
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, Terry, you dropped out a bit there.
Did I? Hello? Can you hear me now?
There you go. Now you're back.
Okay, weird. I'll maybe waving my hands. But I was saying that many of our listeners are solopreneurs like you are. And you obviously have to wear lots of different hats in your business. Do you find that many of your the folks that you work with are also the same, the solopreneurs, or are you dealing with departments and teams and larger companies? Who's your client?
The majority of my clients are solopreneurs. They're working in that back bedroom where they've set up a garage shop. But I do have a small handful of clients that I work with. I work with the company, and under the company, I work with 2 or 3 or 4 embroidery people that are on their team.
Right.
Not a lot of it, because again, I focus primarily on the new user. But sometimes it's a little tricky, because you'll have a company and they'll have 3 embroidery people, and you've got everybody sending you graphics, and your question is, okay, who sent this graphic? Because I need to make sure it gets back to this team member. But maybe it should go over to this team. It gets a little confusing sometimes, but because they're small, it's easy enough for everybody to figure out what's going on and shuffle things around where they need to go.
Yeah, I mean, I come from more of that, the second case. I mean, that's where I started out, but in later on in life, I've been serving a lot more people who are in that kind of garage shop myself. And I think there's probably less difference than people think with what they all need. But you're right, it's information control that I think is probably the hardest. And for kind of in both ways, the solopreneurs, they want to control everything, but then they are usually overburdened. And so things get missed. And with the larger shops, like you said, it's because we don't have a line of control with information going from one end to the other without it kind of getting mixed up or reversed.
I just had a thought that I want to share with those solopreneurs.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be able to do it right away. But the minute you can, hire out the things that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bookkeeper and an accountant, because I can't do math anymore. And for me to sit and try to do my books, it used to take me a week to do my book. And as a small business, I don't have a lot of book to do. So I hire that out. Cost me $100 a month. Okay, so $100 a month for me, that's 4 designs. I can do that.
Absolutely.
So again, you solopreneurs, once you get to the point where you can, hire out the things that you don't want to do. Let somebody else with the passion for that project do that for you.
Well, and frankly, that's also digitizing, because I've had that same question from people where they're like, well, I'm doing the digitizing, but it's taking me, 8 hours to do a design. I'm watching my digitizer people. They turn it over to me in 15 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, well, with that 8 hours, what could you have sold? How many pieces could you have run? How many contacts could you have made, or clients could you have called? There is a point to saying, if this just isn't your jam, there is no problem letting that go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
There's no shame in it.
No, and it doesn't mean you have to hire a full-time person. Like you said, your bookkeeper is doing, it's piecework. It's not, you're hiring them out for a task. You're not bringing in another person to sit next to you all day. You don't have to do that with every task. And especially with digitizing, obviously, we are all kind of piece workers. We know what that's like. We're definitely hired for a task. We're a black box that money goes in and design comes out sometimes for some people. We get that, but I think it's worthwhile to understand, because I think people they get hung up on this idea that if I'm not handling everything, that somehow it's not worthwhile. Like, no, absolutely, you can hire stuff out. Even if you are more business minded than creative, hire the creative stuff out. That's fine. But if you're one of us who really wants to do the creative work, find out where you can do more creative work and free up your time by hiring out the stuff you're not as key on. I think that's a wonderful way to think about it.
Yes.
Well, I actually got a couple comments coming in too that I think are worthwhile. We're going back a little bit to our last stuff. Cindy had something she was talking about, skills going away with automation. She's like, I think about tracing. I know with the newer machines, you might not have to trace. The machines know what hoop you're using, but I will trace until the day I die. So tracing is if you don't know, Terry, it's where we first start out a design, you load the design up, and it will run the needle around where the outside extremes of the design are, so you don't crash the needle into the hoop. For anybody who's not in embroidery, you're not into the arcane parts of embroidery. But yeah, she's like, that's the way I was trained. That's what I'm going to do. I have a hard time with that one too. And in fact, now that I've been doing more work with home-based businesses or people who actually were crafters who made it into kind of commercial spaces, they buy old commercial machines and crash that needle into the hoop all the time because they're very used to the home-based machines know the size of the hoop and will not exceed their limits. Whereas the commercial machine is like, whatever you put under this needle, I'm going to sew.
Regardless of what's in the way.
Including you.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'm a firm believer in tracing also.
Yeah.
I have one machine that's very good about not going outside the lines, and one machine that could care less. But even so, I still trace.
I thought we were all in this business to go outside the lines, isn't that?
No, and honestly, I used to make my own hoop templates because if you look at a presser foot, there's less space in the front that's taken up than the back, so you can actually get closer to the hoop in the front. I used to graze right into that edge of that hoop, getting exactly all the space I could. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but it's often what we did.
I have outlines of hoop size embroidered, just design files that I'll bring in.
Yep.
So that I make sure that I stay within those lines.
Custom templates. We all learn to do that stuff. Those who have been doing it for a minute, we learn how to do that. Ramona's got it right. Though I guess Brendan says, and I've got a couple comments from Brendan before we move on here. Brendan says, hoop crashing is a badge of honor. I don't know about that. After you break a reciprocator, I don't know how much of a badge of honor it is when you're tearing the head off to fix your clinker. But he says, wear the lesson proudly. But let's go back. He's got one more comment that I think is worthwhile. We talked about learning to edit, learning to do text, and I agree with that what he's saying here. Agreed. Often we say start with editing, learn to edit, adjust well-digitized designs, and watch them sew on the machine. Boy, that watch couldn't be capital enough. I really tell people you need to watch a machine running. I know it seems like paint drying for some people, but you'll learn more by far watching it run. Seeing how the machine reacts is the best way to learn how to make good designs. And I'll expand on that and say, seeing how the material moves in the hoop while it's sewing is absolutely probably the best education you can give yourself. Yeah. So I'd love to see that. And also Cindy, making sure to get us all on the tracing bandwagon, says, don't forget to set your center. Yeah, forget your center. Then you'll be glad you're traced. Yeah, old school machines, especially in commercial machines, you can set your center point. If you have moved it somewhere because you were doing some other sort of alignment, you can definitely run way outside of that hoop real quick. So yeah, it is a good idea to trace anyway. I do love the automation. I love like the computer vision with the cameras and all of that, but knowing where things are going to be going. Tracing's still a good idea. Don't wreck your machine, even if it is a badge of honor. All right. So kind of moving a little bit forward. I know we're probably going to have to cut a little bit, but I want to plug your weekly show real quick. I just want to say, everybody, Ramona has a show. She is teaching online as well, Coffee and Conversation every Saturday. But as someone who's creating educational content consistently, what are people asking you to cover? And I'm going to ask a little tongue-in-cheek follow-up here. Do you think what they're asking you for is what they really need?
Well, I don't get, and I ask every week, if you've got something you want me to cover, just, send me a message. I don't get a lot of that, but what I do is I watch the messages come across online through social media. And if somebody's asking a question there, if one person's asking, then I make the assumption that there are others who are not asking. So that's what I create my content for. For example, this week we're going to talk about the size of graphics. Somebody sent me a graphic that is 12 by 12 to put on a hat.
Wow.
All that detail will not come down to 2 inches. So this week we're going to talk about how to know if your graphic is going to work for the size you want it, or how to create a graphic for the size you want it. And that came about, again, because somebody sent me a graphic, huge, lots and lots of detail, and they want it to be 2 inches high. Or I'll get a question, online, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a subject. Let me step back. When I started this
Mhm.
2 years ago, I had friends who were encouraging me to do this,
Yeah.
and the biggest concern was, where am I going to get content? And I posed that question to Aaron,
Yeah.
and Aaron said, the people who ask you questions are providing you subject matter for your content.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that. That's what I do. I listen to what they're asking about and building content based on that.
Yeah. So you feel like, but you think people are on the beat pretty well. They kind of know where their pain points are.
And the nice thing about recording it is, especially for people like me who need repeat education,
Mm-hmm.
they can go back and look at it again. Now, I'm not saying that my education is 100% the way you got to go. I'm saying this is what I do. This is what I work for me. Try it yourself. If you like it, use it. If you don't, tweak it or throw it away. Your choice.
I think honestly, all of us who you can almost tell when people are draconian about my way is the way to go. I always kind of screw my nose up a little bit. I kind of look at them and say, all right, I don't know if this is who I want to listen to, because most of us who've been doing this, we're like, hey, here's a level of experience I have. Here's where that experience comes from. Judge for yourself, but here's my also usually here are my examples and why it worked. I think that's kind of where we are. And I'll say people love your show. Cindy's jumping in, says, I love her show. She can be so helpful and so knowledgeable. I agree. You are excellently carrying out the mission of teaching. But I think that's the thing is like the reason I asked a tongue in cheek question is because sometimes I get a lot of questions that I think are off the beat. I'll be honest and say I've told lots of people like, hey, I know what you're asking me, and I'll tell you what you want to know, and we'll talk about it. But I'm going to stop for a minute and say, here's what you really are missing. Like, here's the thing you probably actually wanted to know that's going to solve your problem. But I think it's par for the course for who you're dealing with at any given time. There are some folks who are brand new who want that button pressing A through F set of steps for every single thing they want to do. But I think a lot of us also will go in and say, here's some fundamentals underneath that are really what you're trying to get at. And you can do both. So it's funny. You can answer the question and still get to those essentials. But I think honestly, the way you're approaching it, and also, like I said, because of you being you and how much people love engaging with that content, that's part of it too. I think everybody finds the person whose tribe they belong to. And I think that's part of what makes it great that we're all out here teaching.
They find the voice that they recognize in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, and honestly, not everybody learns the same way. So I think it's great that we're all out here to teach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Ramona, we are out of time. So where can folks find out more about you and your services?
I have social media on Facebook, primarily Quick to Stitch. My website is quicktostitch.com. My email is quicktostitch@gmail.com. I'm all about quick to stitch. And it took me 3 years to come up with that. And I've had it for a long time now. And again, on Saturday mornings on YouTube and on Facebook, you can find me on YouTube at Quick to Stitch, Coffee and Conversation.
All right. For our podcast listeners, that's Quick, the number 2, Stitch.
And certainly, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up for everybody. Again, I'm going to give you guys the link in the comments. Go to YouTube, and that is also there. So youtube.com/@quick2stitch. So grab that as well. I'm going to throw that up on the banner so everybody gets one more chance if you haven't checked it out. So if you want to catch Coffee and Conversation every Saturday, go grab that. And as I always say, with our channel, with your channel, with my channel, there's tons of this content that has been recorded for you that you can search through. When you're going to ask questions, by all means, get with these creators and search through that back content. It's good for the creators. It's good for you. And there's lots of stuff you can watch on demand.
Awesome.
Just one more thought.
Yes.
Try to be over by at least 2 minutes to make Aaron feel better.
Oh, we will definitely hit it. We're going to hit a couple minutes by giving Aaron his time for the secret sauce. Don't worry.
And that it's real coffee with on Saturdays, because Ramona ran to get a second cup of coffee right before we went on the air. So
It's true. It's true.
Coffee number 3. Coffee number 3. Give me a moment. I just want to say thank you guys for inviting me today. It's been a blast. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. It was great having you on, and thank you very much for answering the call, especially late in the week, because I was having a hard time getting things organized. I really appreciate you jumping in, and it's been great having you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, awesome to have Ramona on. She's so
really
great.
good.
Well, and also Brendan jumps in. I'm just going to say this too. I think the industry is lucky to have folks like you guys here, plus people like Justin and Cindy, always sharing amazing content. Thank you all. Thank you, Brendan. And he's sharing stuff too with Wilcom. But yeah, love this stuff. And I mean, all of our educators, Lisa Shaw, who I work with, is one who I think about too greatly. She's sharing all the time, and over at Embrilliance, and like there's people from all of these different spaces sharing, and I just love to see it. But having Ramona on, I've always wanted to, and known her from the shows and from classes and from everything, and just really was tickled to have her today.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me read what Aaron has coming up. Aaron's in Kansas City right now at the DAX show.
This is true.
Anybody that's in the area, go over and say hello to Aaron. Aaron's going to be at the Graphics Pro Expo in Irving, Texas on March 8th. Topic of his program is Marketing Better in 2025, Grow Profits with Clarity and Connection. Go to graphics-pro-expo.com/event/Irving-2025. They don't make it easy over there at Graphics Pro.
I will certainly throw that in the comments for everybody.
And Aaron also says, join the OSG Facebook page. It's a Facebook group you will want to be in. Lots of great perspective questions and discussions about more than just surface level stuff. That is osg.link/group. And for me, Erich, I'll go ahead and go. My complete screen printing business course, I'm going to be in Chicago at Atlas Screen Supply, March 15th and 16th. I'm going to be in the Equipment Zone booth at the DTF Expo here in Phoenix, April 1st and 2nd. And you can find all my upcoming events at terrycombs.com. How about you, Erich?
Well, sad to say, folks, this will be the only show I'm doing today. I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys know Take Up will be postponed. I'm actually not supposed to be doing the show. My doctor yesterday told me to rest my voice for the next few days. So I made a deal with her that I would only do one show today, and I chose to do this one since we were filling in for Aaron. So if you want to seek this content from me, if you're already here, you already know. Otherwise, I'm probably going to go ahead and link this show at 2:30 today and say, hey, here's your embroidery commentary for the day. Enjoy Ramona and Erich and Terry talking about what we do. But I should be back next week. We are crossing our fingers that everything goes well. I'm on lovely medications and everything, but in order to not lose my voice permanently, apparently I've got to lose it temporarily. So I will be back up. You will see some stuff from me, and I might even go old school. What I was thinking, Terry, is I was going to write a couple blog posts. I haven't been posting like I used to in a while, so you might get some extra articles from me that aren't in the trades this coming week if I can't talk, because I don't know if I can keep all these words back, my man.
I love it. Very good.
All right. So with that, why don't we get to the secret sauce? We've got a great recording from Aaron.
Hey there, regulators. Happy Friday, but on a Wednesday. Sorry I'm not there with you guys today. I am having a wonderful time, I'm sure of it, at the DAX show in Kansas City, Missouri. So the secret sauce is all about harnessing something very powerful. Now imagine if you had a superpower that could instantly shift your mood, strengthen your relationships, and even improve your health. And what if I told you you already have this superpower? It is called gratitude. Here's how to unleash this amazing superpower. Step 1, we need to it's actually a mindset shift. It's a tool that reframes challenges into growth and ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. It's actually how we train our minds to focus on abundance instead of scarcity is what gratitude's all about. Step 2 of unlocking this superpower is a 3-step gratitude activation. When your mood is off, you're feeling lonely, and even stuck in a rut, call on gratitude. Anytime you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or lost, just pause and breathe. Take some deep breaths in and out. And by being intentional, you see those deep breaths, by being intentional with those deep breaths, you make that out breath a little bit longer. And that's a signal to your subconscious that you're ready to kind of take the wheel for a moment. So once you've released that fight, flight, fawn, or freeze state by those deep breaths, I invite you to find one good thing, anything at all. Look for something in your day to appreciate. Maybe it's a lesson, a person, a small joy, a roof over your head, clothes on your body, food in your belly, a pet. Then say thank you out loud. Out loud is so important. Verbalize your gratitude, and that shifts your energy instantly. Now, repeat this until stress, overwhelm, and anxiety is at bay. Now, here's the real truth that I discovered learning about gratitude for my wife as we wrote in this book together. Gratitude doesn't erase challenges, right? It just reframes them. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing a better lens to see things through. And you know what? Even if you're not feeling stressed, anxious, or worried, do it anyways. In today's world, almost everyone carries around some form of fear or worry. Right now, I want to invite you to think of one person or thing that you are grateful for and just say it out loud. You're watching this recording. You can just say it. Nobody's listening. And even if they are, say it anyways. And then I invite you to take it further. Text someone. Tell them why you appreciate them. When you do that, feel that shift. That's the gratitude superpower in action. In writing this book called The Gratitude Shift, which you can actually find on Amazon at rssyoga.link/gratitude shift, I learned that gratitude isn't just a feeling. It's a choice, a practice, and ultimately a superpower. Use it daily and watch your world transform. That's my secret sauce. Back to you, Terry and Erich.
We've come to the close of another show with that, and we're a little over, Aaron. You can feel better. We're 6 minutes past the hour, my man. But what I want to do is make sure to stop and once again thank Ramona McKee of quicktostitch.com and Quick to Stitch everywhere on the internet. Go check out her show, Coffee and Conversation. Really, thank you for being here. Loved having you on, and loved our very frank discussion of all the stuff going on in the embroidery world.
Awesome. And as always, we want to thank our show producer, Erich Campbell. Thanks, Erich, for soldiering through today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with me. Next week, I actually don't have us listed, so we are still efforting on our show. We will have a show up shortly, so we will share the topic as we get that going, but we definitely have some people who are in the queue who you're going to want to see. So tune in, and we will have some postings shortly with what's coming up.
All right. Until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Erich Campbell for Aaron Montgomery.
And that was the Two Regular Guys.
Here we go. We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Two Regular Guys. We're here because of listeners like you, and we're so grateful to have you on this journey with us. For more valuable insight, be sure to visit our website, 2regularguys.com, and join the conversation on our Facebook page. And hey, if you or someone you know has expertise, a unique perspective, or a story worth sharing, we'd love to have them as a guest on the show. Just reach out. Remember, success in this industry isn't just about the equipment you own or the techniques you've mastered. It's about the mindset you bring and the connections you build. Keep learning, stay curious, and don't be afraid to think differently.